Starting with an early SNES classic here with the fantastic futuristic racer F-Zero. Very much a launch game that showed off the Mode 3 skills of the Super Nintendo. There is a great sense of speed along with a thumping soundtrack. Lots of courses, lots of challenges, and of course lots of fun. It still plays pretty well today and is arguably one of the best racers on the system. To be fair, this game did suffer somewhat being played straight after F-Zero. The controls felt sluggish in comparison, but I appreciated the nice graphics and licensed names on show. I played a single player game but had to endure a kind of split screen affair, which was annoying, but it's not a bad game. The sequel feels much more polished and playable. I managed to keep up with the other cars after only a few minutes, and the split screen fell away to some nicely done rear side mirrors. Still fully licensed with what seems like a ton of options to tweak your car, this one seems to fare a lot better than its predecessor. Yep, another F1 game. This one with proper driver names but not as graphically pretty as the F1 pole games. Still, it has a good sense of speed and has a much more arcade approach to racing. No spin outs or damage if you use the other cars to help you break into the corners, but I don't mind that. It's still a challenge and was interesting enough to keep me playing for a few circuits. Based on a short-lived cartoon series by none other than Steven Spielberg and Tim Burton, this is another piss-poor platformer. Cartoonish graphics are okay I guess, but I hate it that nonsensical stuff kills the dog. Squeaky ball? Yep, even the evil kid owner wants the dog dead. It's pretty horrible and avoidable. Oh, and search up the first episode on YouTube. Talk about bad dog owners, but reading the comments there seems to be quite a lot of nostalgia for it. By dropping some of the features of the arcade game to fit the SNES's limitations, this honestly just feels like a janky, out-of-date Street Fighter clone. I mean, it's okay, but the moves are so hard to pull off on the SNES joypad that the game becomes frustrating all too quickly. The follow-up definitely fared better than its predecessor. The gameplay is smoother, the fight scenes are better, and an all-round it feels closer to the arcade port. The foreground-background movement is pretty cool. A good rocking soundtrack also helps, as does the bigger player roster to choose from. This is much better. Although just a simply updated Fatal Fury 2 with updated backgrounds, easier gameplay, faster game speed and selectable bosses, I would say that this is the Fatal Fury game to play if I had to pick. I love the huge characters that you can select, and it did feel quicker and subsequently more fun to play than the other two. Right, quite a few footy games coming up now, and before the avalanche of FIFAs we have US Gold's Fever Pitch. Q8 just ran down the field and scored an insta-goal within 30 seconds of me playing, and that really summed up my experience. It seemed an anything goes arcade type affair that looks and sounds okay but was not something I would say I enjoyed.
Replay.
After playing Fever Pitch I had high hopes for FIFA 97, but it played pretty terribly to be honest. I played the indoor mode to mix it up a little bit, but the frame rate was awful. I just felt like the SNES was playing catch up the whole time. My rose tinted spectacles do not remember it this way, so it's interesting how it's aged. This honestly doesn't fare any better. I'm sure I had this on the Mega Drive, so maybe that plays better. But how I sunk hours into this, I'm not so sure. It's so clunky to play. I really thought these would be a breeze to play and I would enjoy them immensely, but Fever Pitch is actually favourable at the moment compared to this frame rate shit show. Now, being the first FIFA game to appear on the system, you might assume it's the worst. Well, quite the opposite actually. I found this one heaps more playable than the other offerings here and more reminiscent of the FIFA I remember spending hours on back in the day. The gameplay was more fluid, almost like it was designed for the system, rather than shoehorned into it like the later versions. Thankfully, the sequel to International Soccer is the last to feature here, and you can see the tweaks starting to happen that make it less appealing than the previous one. The power bar is gone, which I actually liked, and it started to struggle to keep up with where the ball was. Possibly the second best offering in the SNES FIFA offerings, but that's not saying much honestly. Another of those games that if you're a collector you'll be doubling up on. It seems it was released as both Fighting Spirit Tuff Enough and just Tough Enough in Europe, so sticking it here under the Fs. Why two names? Who knows. As for the game, well, I enjoyed it over the Fatal Fury games earlier, although it was pretty hard, but not knowing the combos didn't help. It had a strong resemblance to Street Fighter though in appearance and sound, and characters honestly. Reading into it, the special moves are fairly similar too. So if you're looking for a Street Fighter rip-off, then this game is for you. Apart from its obvious limitations, I mean no two-player, come on Capcom, this is a great game. It's often spoke about flaws aside, it has lovely big sprites, great bosses, and even fun car-smashing minigames. Yes, it has missing levels, but honestly this is still heaps of fun today, even though it was an early SNES title. More of the same in Final Fight 2, except 2 players is now a thing, as is 3 characters to choose from. Some side-scrolling in some levels is also a thing, and it's still great fun. Definitely feels a little bit more polished than the first one, but you're less charming. But it's still a great game though. Easily the best game of the series here. It takes everything that made the other 2 great and improves it again. I love the auto 2-player option, which allows the computer to take control of player 2. Everything moves at a faster pace and the action feels very smooth and seamless. A stone cold classic, this one. A fairly standard looking action platformer that fares better than most. It has some nice features like the bell here that helps you get over tricky fire platforms, etc. It also moves along fairly quickly and there is an abundance of things trying to kill you, which keeps you entertained, but it can also be annoying. All in all though, if platforms are your thing, this is not a bad one. Very much like Another World, this is a cinematic platformer that suffers for being so. It's lovely to look at, but like similar titles, a bit janky to play. The footage here is my early attempts at trying to work out jumps, and quite honestly I got annoyed fairly quickly. It's not a bad game, it just suffers from trying to impress in its own time. The cutscenes for instance are super laggy and not very cinematic at all. It all feels like a step too far for a little SNES friend, but it's okay. A boxing game, for real? This is pretty average button pressing affair to be honest, but for 10 minutes I pressed buttons playing it, and I really couldn't get over the freaky faces that bless the boxers. They just seem bolted on and are proper weird. I didn't do any batting but got all I needed out of the game, pitching and fielding. To throw the ball you just select what you want to do, so there's no real skill there, and then the screen goes blank and then you have to work out where the hell your player is. It was all very clunky and I wasn't keen. It did look really good though, but yet another style over substance. Well, where to start? Okay, the positives. The cutesy cartoon style works pretty well, and that's about it. Frustrating doesn't come close in this stinking dog turd of a game. You have to collect little ant guys who like to move freely around on their own and get blasted around the level whenever you meet a baddie, so you have to start again. They bugger off freely and can't seem to follow you on some jumps. I played this for exactly 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and I feel like I wasted 4 minutes and 32 seconds of my life. Now, there are 2 entries in my list for this game, Full Throttle and Full Throttle All-American Racing, but I couldn't find any reference to just Full Throttle. So it's either a mistake or I just can't find it. I kinda wish I hadn't found this game anyways, as it's a god awful Mode 3 racer of the kind of road rash style. You get to play rounds on either a bike or a jet ski, but there is little difference between the two honestly, and they're both horrid. There's no in-game sound effects, just music, which makes this kind of a weird game. It was just boring and not very nice to look at, let alone play. Oh, what a way to end the Fs. I'm really hoping this game wasn't full priced. Look how in this maze game the cats just circle the remaining cheese. And yes, this is the best game or part to this clutched together piss take waste of plastic. Obviously aimed at a younger audience, I can't imagine any child enjoyed this. Right, so what to pick out of this lot to go through to the final? Well, first up, easy peasy, F-Zero. Then Final Fight 3 as the pick of the Final Fight games. And First Samurai, as it was a little different to your usual platformer and I kinda liked it. So do you agree or disagree with those? What would you say from that lot? I was really disappointed at how FIFA had aged. I thought that would be an easy pick, but it just wasn't much fun. Let me know yours in the comments please, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.